I never gave myself credit for my efforts. I told myself I was homely, thoughtless, lazy, and stupid. I would never say those things to a good friend. Welcome to the Courage to Change with Karen podcast, the place where we get real about addiction recovery and celebrate the victories against struggle. I'm Karen Gardenier, your navigator on this journey of healing, committed to uplifting families touched by addiction. Together, let's unravel the intricate dance of mind, body, and spirit with compassion, tenacity, and steadfast commitment. Before we get started today, I want to tell you about my upcoming event. It's a 6-week program essential for partners and parents of alcoholics. It's called Embracing Hope. I'm going to be teaching vital coping strategies, how to set healthy boundaries, and prioritize your own well-being. You can really transform from this overwhelmed to empowered self with tools for self-care, effective communication. I'm also going to be adding in, so many people have been asking me for this, as a bonus, we're going to do the 12 steps of Al-Anon. So I will get you through the 12 steps of Al-Anon at the same time. It's really time to start your journey of growth and resilience as a group and join together so we can really, as a community that understands and supports you, embrace hope and embrace change. I hope to see you there. Hi, I'm Karen, and welcome to the Courage to Change with Karen podcast. Today I'm going to be reading a reading from February 20th. This is episode 8, and it's page 51 out of the Courage to Change book, if you have one. One of the first things I heard in Al-Anon was we didn't have to accept unacceptable behavior. This idea helped me to see what I need not tolerate violence or abuse, and that I had choices I hadn't recognized before. I set some limits, not to control others, but to offer myself guidelines so that I would know what was and what was not acceptable and what to do about it. A few years later, I was congratulating myself on how I no longer had such problems, when I suddenly realized there was still one person from whom I regularly accepted unacceptable behavior. Me. I was continually berating myself and blaming myself when things went wrong. I never gave myself credit for my efforts. I told myself I was homely, thoughtless, lazy, stupid. I would never say those things to a friend. I realized that until I started treating myself like a valued friend, I would be standing in the way of my own recovery. Today's reminder: I have been affected by a disease of attitudes. When I treat myself with love and approval, I know that I am recovering. And let's see, there's a little quote here. Let one therefore keep the mind pure, for what a man thinks, that he becomes. So I talk a lot about this, that last little phrase there, what you think is what you become. This is a great topic for me. I've been going through this a lot lately. So there's also something, what is running through your head? I post stuff about that all the time. My thoughts are my worst enemy. And they also say that the 5 people you spend most time with is an accumulation of who you are. And that made me think about the 5 people that you talk to or you spend most time with. That's that's kind of your reality right now. So those things can change. You can add new things. Even if you're at work and you're with people you can't stand, I think you just have to make sure that you're around information that is making you feel good. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to YouTube. I'm constantly taking in information that is good for my head. I don't like the news. I trust me, without watching the news, you can find out everything that's going on with the world, whether you want to or not. So I try not to watch things that are going to pollute my mind and throw me into terror. I've started watching a lot of BritBox. If you get my newsletter, I shared one of the shows that I was just binged, and I just loved it. And if you're not on my email list, I urge you, please, to get on my email list. All you've got to do is go to the notes in the comment, the show notes here. If you don't know what show notes are, I'm going down a rabbit hole. The show notes, if you look at the description of this video and you hit more, a whole thing will pop up, and it'll have a link so that you can jump in and join my email list. And that's my Stan store. You can just grab one of my freebies, and that'll get you on the list. I have a new freebie out right now too. You should check it out. And then also in there is going to be a link. I'll go ahead and just say this right now since we're doing this. It's a link to my private Facebook page, Courage to Change with Karen. So you should be on that too, because I do a lot of lives and I do a lot of daily readings. I'll just hop on and do a daily reading from Courage to Change, and a lot more support and information there, a little bit more intimate. So make sure you check out the show notes and get those links, get on my email list. But what I was saying was I watch a lot of that kind of stuff, like on BritBox or Hulu or Peacock, because they don't have commercials. I can get through without commercials. And I went to a friend's house last week, and they were watching Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. And I know that's a demographic of older people, so I understand. But it seems like it's all the time. These pharmaceutical ads are driving me crazy. Every ad was a pharmaceutical ad, and it was giving you, like, if you have this and that. Well, I have all of those. I don't know. But then they give you the side effects, and I'm like, holy moly. Some of them are for very rare diseases, Well, if it's so rare, why put it on public television? Why not just let your doctor tell you about it? So the pharmaceutical company, I've got a problem with that. We don't allow as much beer or booze commercials. There's no cigarette commercials, but yet we're bombarded with these pharmaceutical stuff. So I try not to get that in my head, because that makes me think sickness, and I don't want that in my world. So kind of think about that a little bit in your own. That's not what I want to talk about today, but that is a great topic. What are you putting in your world? Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? What are you reading? What are you listening to? Be a little bit more selective about what you're doing. This disease, I love this in the part that says today's reminder. I have been affected by a disease of attitudes. Alcoholism and addiction is a family illness. We all know that. And it's a disease of attitudes, for sure. And when you're living in that kind of stress and that kind of drama, it wears you down. It wears you down. When you are the only one in your home that's in some form of recovery, and it's hard. I know it's hard. And I like this up here, about having, setting some limits, not controlling others. What was acceptable to you, right? What is acceptable to me? And then how am I going to respond to it? I think a lot of times people just think about what's not acceptable. Like they say, okay, I'm going to set a boundary. No drugs and alcohol in my house, right? If your kid's a heroin addict or something, you've made a boundary with them. There are no illegal substances in my house. But people fail to follow through with that last part. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it when you find a pipe or some foil in their bedroom? What are you going to do about it when you find a bottle of vodka in the cowboy boot in the closet? What are you going to do about it? That's the part people really fail. It doesn't mean you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You don't have to divorce or excommunicate your kid, but you have to know what you're going to do. And there's lots of options. So if you are interested in those options, that's what I talk about. What do you do? Right? What do you do? The next part that really stands out to me is about this blaming myself. So let's go back to that. I was continually berating myself and blaming myself when things went wrong. I never gave myself much credit for my efforts. I told myself all these bad things, and I'm not treating myself like a valued friend. That's really hard, and that's the part I really can relate to, at least this week. I do pretty good about my self-esteem until something goes wrong. And I don't know about you, but when something goes wrong, I make a mistake. It's either financial, or I've said something I shouldn't have said, or I behaved in I tend to really, I don't know how to explain it. It's like I have a filing cabinet in my head, and as soon as something goes wrong and I start blaming myself, I open up that filing cabinet and I pull out everything I've done wrong since the day I was born. I start piling it on. I just start looking at all the mistakes I've made in my life. Like, oh my God, if I would have done this, if I could have done that, I'm such a failure, whatever that is, it all comes out and it starts piling in on me. That happened to me last week. And I think that it overwhelmed me. All of a sudden, I was this terrible person who hasn't done anything with her life and have wasted, money and time and energy. And it just was all bad. And, I had to really regroup. And I really, this is the self-talk I gave myself, okay? These are the things that made the most difference to me. And I want you to listen to them right now. If you're in your car or you're on the treadmill or whatever, I want you to kind of come back to me right now. Really pay attention to this part. I am right where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I believe that. I am right where I'm supposed to be. Now, when I look back in my life, I can see these threads interwoven where if I wouldn't have taken this trip, I wouldn't have met this person, and then I wouldn't have showed up in Austin, Texas, and then I wouldn't have done, you know what I mean? It's like my life has been kind of carefully laid out for me, even though a lot of it's been really hard. Even the hardest things I've gone through have ended up being my biggest assets. So I have to think that this is all unfolding exactly the way it's supposed to be. And if I was supposed to be somewhere else, I'd be there, right? I'm right where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to do. And then I thought, you know what? I've done a lot of great things, right? I've done a lot of things that other people couldn't have done. I have, when I was in my 20s, I picked up and moved to the Caribbean. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a place to live. I just wanted to go. One day I heard that song, Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty. And I thought, that's it. This life is not for me. I'm out of here. And I did that. And most people would not do that. And I succeeded. I ended up with a place to live, and I had a car, and I had a job, and I had friends, and I lived there in this totally different environment, in a different culture, all by myself. That was one thing. The other thing was I got sober, which was not easy. And I got sober and stayed sober and did some amazing things and had an amazing child. And then I relapsed, but I got sober again, which is really hard after double-digit years. And I went through homelessness during that time. I was homeless. I had to rebuild my entire life. I had to dig myself out of all this debt. And I did. And then I ended up starting this group and on Zoom, and I started taking people through the steps, and I helped a lot of people get sober. A lot of people find treatment. A lot of families and friends walk through their own loss or recovery with their family members. I did a lot during that time. I mean, it was incredible. I also, during all of that, have parented a child with mental illness. And it has not been easy. I've had to learn the hard way about enabling and boundaries and love and respect and communication. And, I'm a major codependent. And I will snuff the life right out of somebody. I mean, I will just love you to death. And people resent it. People resent it. And it's taken me a long time to stay in my own hula hoop. It's taken me a long time to leave people alone and then focus on me. And I don't know why it is that something will come up and make you want to beat the hell out of yourself. A lot of times it's because the person that you love is telling you you're a piece of shit. I had a woman ask me on TikTok the other day, she asked me, how come alcoholics are so mean? And, I responded, it's a good video. You should go back and look at it if you're on TikTok. But, I said, because first thing, you don't know what you're going to get with us. You have no idea. We're either going to be this soppy, I love you, and cry and be melancholy and miss our parents and, our dog Spot from when we were 6. Or we get mean and angry and we blame everybody, right? And regardless of how it is, I'm a very mean drunk. I'm very mean when I drink. And so I understand that kind of thinking. And the biggest thing that, you can understand about that situation is it's mental health issues. It's a mental health discussion. It is not a they don't love me discussion, right? And people get violent that have mental health issues. We've all seen it. And you do not want to get in that path. You want to protect yourself. You want to protect your children. You want to protect your home, your finances, your everything. You want to protect against this violent, destructive, fatal illness of addiction and alcoholism. And when you're around that all the time, any kind of mental health, in my situation, I get told all the time that I'm the problem. I'm the worst person that's ever walked the planet. It's a constant, you hear it constantly. And when you hear that constantly, it affects you. And so I have to be my biggest advocate. I really do. No one else is coming to save me. There's no one else. I've had a lot of people leave, can't be in relationship with me because I have a sick child, and I get it. But I have learned the balance of going, hey, that's their thing. They're sick. I'm helpful, but I don't listen to it. I don't take it in anymore. I don't. It's not true. It's not valid. And if I have to write down my own list of all the accomplishments I've made in my life and remind myself, that's what I'll do. And the other day I got down on myself and I had to go back to that list and say, hey, no. You're doing the best you can. If I could have done better, I would have. Right? I would tell that to a friend. I'd say, hey, if you could have done better, you would have. It's a learning process, right? This is life. This is not the Academy Awards. It's not, we're not getting Nobel Peace Prizes here. It's life. It's all for the experience. But I can't turn on myself. If I turn on myself, who do I have? Right? I've got it's me and my higher power. Without my higher power, and my higher power is the one that gave me these tools, that gave me the tools the other day. The other day could have gone very different. Instead of sitting down and saying, okay, wait a minute. Stop believing your head, right? You're just beating yourself up. Close the filing cabinet. I wish I could just shred that stuff in my filing cabinet, but it's there. It's always there. And, close the filing cabinet and let's get a grip here. Life has been pretty damn good. I'm surviving, period. And I'm living and I'm loving and I'm laughing and I'm moving forward with my life, my best life, regardless of what's going on around me. And my higher power gave me those tools. It was a suggestion from someone else, just like I'm giving you. Write down the things you've done so you can remind yourself. Because when you're in that state of self-pity and remorse and guilt, it's hard to remember anything. It's hard to remember anything. But when I'm in those funks, that self-pity and remorse and self-hatred, I'm useless to everyone around me. I'm useless in my life. I can't participate in anything, right? I can't help anyone. I can't do anything. I'm stuck. And so I was given these tools, I think, from a higher power through the conduit of someone on the planet who gave me suggestions. One was, write this shit down so when this comes up, you read it, remind yourself, you're doing fine. You're doing a great job. And then get busy. That's the other thing I was told. It's hard to hit a moving target. If I lay down in the bed and pull the sheets over my head, forget it. Right? Just forget it. And the same thing, if I had a good friend, I wouldn't let him do that. I'd go over and drag their ass out of bed, right? And that action changed my thinking. They say take the body and the mind will follow. I believe it. I had to get moving because it was going to take me down a rabbit hole into anxiety and depression and shame and guilt and remorse. And I don't want to live that way. Life is too short. So I quickly picked up those tools and I got out of it. I shook it off. I thought, you're right where you're supposed to be, doing right what you're supposed to be doing. You've done a lot of good in your life. You've done a lot of shit in your life. You've made mistakes, but you've learned from them, right? What more could you ask? Nothing. So the person that has to put down the whipping chair is me. Nobody else was, it didn't hit the papers. Karen, loser. Oh my God. Karen. It wasn't posted on the news. Nobody was calling me saying, you're really a piece of shit. Maybe, the people with mental health, but, I've learned that that's really not about me. You could substitute anybody in that spot and it'd be the same reaction. So I've learned to not take everything so seriously and try to be nice to myself. Try to be kind. Good job. Sometimes I think I got out of bed and I brushed my teeth. Woohoo! Lower the bar. And some days I can slay it, right? Some days I'm on fire and I have to be gentle with myself. I have to be kind to myself because when you're dealing with sick people around you, you have to be tip top. You have to be tip top, especially with the disease of alcoholism and addiction. It will tear you to shreds if you let it. So I like the reading a lot. I like this idea of being my own friend. I get so uptight with myself and strict and self-critical. And there's really no need for that. I think we're all doing the best we can. The fact that you've even gotten on a podcast to get new information is a sign of growth. It's a sign of self-care. It's a sign of, I want to know more, right? I want to know how other people get through this. So I just love the reading. I love you. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week.